Hi, welcome to the 8th program in the Art in Arlington series. In this program, we meet with Adria Arch. Adria is one of the co-chairs of Arlington Public Arts, and Adria is an artist in her own right. I met with Adria at her home, and we got to discuss her lifetime as an artist, and she showed me a piece that she's currently working on, as well as some of the pieces that she's done, and it was very informative and very insightful. I think you're going to enjoy listening to my conversation with Adria, and you'll also find out that Adria was the inspiration behind the Cheerful Where You Sit installation, and there's an interesting story behind that. So I think you'll enjoy that too. And as a bonus, I am going to have a little video montage of some of the chairs that were on display at the 2016 installation of Cheerful Where You Sit. So again, I hope you enjoy it, and I always thank you for watching. Adria Arch, thank you very much for inviting me over to your studio. This is certainly an interesting space. And why don't you tell me a little bit about how long you've been an artist, what inspired you to become an artist?
I've been an artist all my life. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I just enjoy doing it, and so when friends would come over for play dates, we would usually end up drawing, coloring. I mean, I've always been interested in it and attracted to it. My mother had some friends who were artists, and studios I went to when I was very little, and I fell in love with it. And I always knew that I would be an artist. So yeah, for a long, long time.
Okay, so then since you always knew you were an artist, what was your pathway then to doing the art that you do now?
Well, when I was in high school, I started taking college classes in art, and then I ended up going to an art school. I went to Rhode Island School of Design, and I also went to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, which is where I'm from, and followed the kind of art school path, which is what they teach you in art school. The best thing that they teach you is how to have a studio practice, which means where do you get your ideas from? How do you develop a body of work? How to do some of the different techniques. But art school in 4 years can only teach you so much, and the rest is you have to learn the rest of your life. And your work, if you're a serious artist, is always changing and developing. You should never really stay stagnant. You should be engaged in doing what you want to explore. And I always like to tell people that I think that art is really has a lot in common with science. It is research. It isn't making a pretty picture, though that might end up being part of it. But the pursuit of a serious artist and an art career and a life in the arts is solving questions. What do you want to know about? And it may just be, well, what is this kind of paint and these colors how do they work together on this sort of surface? And what am I interested in? What am I thinking about? What interests me? What do I want to look at? Really, and that's how I decide about my paintings. What do I want to see? What do I want to make happen? That's really what it is.
Well, that's really interesting. That's interesting to hear you say art is like science, because I have a science background. And I tend to be a reductionist, where everything I think just comes down to a certain number of small units that interact together according to rules. And it's amazing how much complexity you can get from a small number of units. A small number of different types of units, but a large number of units themselves. And so it's interesting to say that you see art as more like science, and that it's more a matter of problem solving in terms of meeting your goals. I mean, how do you see it in terms of problem solving with respect to meeting demand for your art?
The commercial piece is a completely different thing. It's another world. And yes, of course, artists have to be aware of that. But, the kind of work that I do as a fine artist, there isn't a market for it. It's like you're making a product for which there is really no market. You have to create that market. So that is very separate from the act of doing it, and it really needs to be. And I always tell my students that too. There is the process of it, and that's the part that is engaging your intellect and your aesthetics and everything. And then there's the marketing of it and whether people enjoy it or like it. I mean, all that is secondary. What has to happen first is that you are engaged in it.
I see. Interesting. Okay. And so what kind of art do you do now? And what kind of art did you start doing? And what perhaps is the sequence from the art that you started doing to the art that you do now?
Well, I'm a painter mostly, and this little piece here is an example of the kind of work that I'm doing. It's a very small scale piece. I'm not in the studio that I have in Lowell to show you the really big works on canvas that are 6 feet by 5 feet right now, and I really enjoy working that big. But all of the larger works started with this whole series of smaller pieces. This is acrylic on a board, and that's what the board looks behind it. It's called Beckon, and my work is, well, people would call it abstract, but I really think of it as non-representational, and I do think that there is a narrative element, that if you look at this work, I call it Beckon because this little shape here looks to me as though it's a hand beckoning, but all of my work has a lot to do with movement. I love dance. I danced a lot when I was a child and a teenager, ballet and modern dance and all that stuff, and I love dancing. I love to look at it. So to me, all my pieces have a lot to do with a feeling of movement. And this whole series has titles that refer to movement. So here's this one. This is called Reach. And I think for the same reason, in some ways, these shapes are reaching out toward each other. I mean, it isn't so obvious. You have to look at it. But for me, that's where the pleasure is. And what I like about working non-representationally is that you make up your own stories, and you're not hitting the viewer over the head with it is supposed to be this. Here is a picture, and this is what it's supposed to be, and that's it. In abstraction or in non-representational work, the viewer can bring his or her own thoughts to it. Like, what does it make you think? How does it make you feel? So this one is called Red Zig, and I think it's because I made this interesting shape over here. And each one of these pieces starts with a paint spill. So in this case, the paint spill is this one here. And I just basically take very loose acrylic paint and I spill it onto a piece of thin plastic, and I walk away and I let it dry. And then when I come back, I find a really interesting shape or not. And when I feel like I've found something that I really like, I will cut it out. And in this case, this is actually glued onto my white background. And then from there, from this blue and yellow shape, I decided to add some of these other elements. But all my pieces lately start with the initial pour of paint, because for me, it's all about creating a mark that is not anticipated and not trying too hard, sort of almost as if it's just been found. So that's a really important piece for me.
Interesting. And so many places I want to go from what you just said. But let me back up to the question that led to this. So have you always done this kind of non-representational abstract art?
There have been times in my career when I've worked more representationally. There's a whole series in the 90s that I did that was based on seashells.
Right.
And so it wasn't, but I was using the seashells on metaphor. So the metaphor is a hard concept for people to understand about art. Like, for me, a piece has to have a subtext. It has to have something more than just what you see. So, these things that we see, that's just this paint that's stuck on the canvas or the board, stands in for something. It stands in for emotions. It stands in for a feeling. It stands in for thoughts and ideas. And so, forgot what I was saying.
Okay, well, you say that you were saying that.
Oh yeah, the metaphor.
Right.
So the seashell, when I was working with it, was a metaphor for a woman's body. I just feel like the shapes and the contours really reminded me of a woman's body. And when shells are chipped and when you find them on the beach, they're not in perfect condition. A lot of times they've got holes through them, and I thought that was really an interesting metaphor about a woman's body as she goes through life. So that was a whole series, but then kind of wrote it out. That's what artists do. They kind of write a series out. They try all the different iterations, all the possibilities, and then it was time to move on.
Right.
So
okay, not to beat the subject into the ground. I'm just trying to get a sense though. Did you start off doing non-representational art, or?
Well, when you're in art school, you learn a lot of different things. You do a ton of drawing from the real world. A lot of people draw from the model, so I did a lot of figure drawing. A lot of you really drawing is the place to start because drawing is how you learn to see.
Right.
And you got to learn to see to become an artist. That doesn't mean just, we see. I mean, if you're sighted, you see, you look and you see, but do you really see in a way that you are looking at shapes and colors and the shadow and the light on someone's face, all that stuff. And that's the thing that you do to grow your chops. And so I did do a lot of that in art school. And, as I said, you're not a full-blown artist when you're just out of art school, I don't think. I think it takes a lifetime to really develop your art.
Right.
So
I got it. And I'll tell you where I'm coming from with that question, because I love abstract art.
Okay.
And,
You're a good person here.
And what I like about it is that it isn't so much a matter of what I bring to the table, although, of course, I'm bringing something to the table because it's my brain that's perceiving it. And, but it's more a matter of where it takes me, and with abstract art, I feel that it can take me different places.
Yes.
And instead of, a representational piece taking me to the same place each time. And so you kind of sit with the piece, and then your thoughts just go places. And I've been to the Hirshhorn, and they have, I forget who the artist is, but they just have canvases that are just one color. And but blue is going to take you a different place than black will or red will.
Exactly.
If you just sit with it for a while, you just thoughts wander. So if I were to do art, after going through art school or whatever, I would probably start off doing abstract art, and then later on, if someone saw me doing representational art, you would ask, well, why did you change? So that's why I was asking. And so I was really thinking, like, after art school and when you got started with your own studio, did you start off doing this type of abstract art? And
like I say, it's been back and forth.
Yeah.
It really has.
Right.
In the 80s, I did a whole series that was people.
Okay.
You never know that it was the same person. Or a whole series that was based on the shape of flowers.
Right.
But, it's always had other meanings for me.
Right.
So.
Okay, I got it. Well, so back to your technique about, just spilling paint on a canvas or whatever, and then letting it dry and going from there. Have you ever started by letting someone else, spill the paint on the canvas for you, and then
that would be really interesting.
Yeah.
In fact, I did a whole series that was based on my son's high school notebook doodles. It'd be previous to this work, and so I was using found shapes that somebody else made.
Right.
So I was really fascinated by the way he drew geometric shapes that were kind of funky, and they were, sort of, you could tell he was holding the pen or the pencil really tightly, and this was stuff he was doing in the margins of his notebooks while he was in high school, and I just found them fascinating.
Yeah.
Not because they were my son, but
Right.
Sort of. It was a way to communicate, kind of a communication, I thought, even though it wasn't about anything in particular. It was just really interesting for me to use those shapes as the starting for my work.
Right. So I think I know the answer to this, and but this is sort of art that seems like it lends itself to collaboration. Have you done any collaborative works?
I haven't.
Okay.
Not really. I mean, that was a collaboration with him if you wanted, but it was already, he had already done the mark, so no.
Right. It's just like, the spell it and then go.
Right,
you're already introducing, an element of, I don't know if serendipity is the word to it.
Yeah, serendipity, it's a great word.
But then you may not go with whatever you get. I mean, I would imagine there
Right.
may be some spills
Editing.
that you just go,
Oh.
hey, that's not going to work for me. Let's do
Absolutely.
another spill. I mean,
Absolutely.
So I could see, in a way, doing a collaboration where either you said, I'm going to go with what's there.
Yeah.
I mean, the next person is like going to take it and go, I'm going to go with what's there.
Yeah.
Or it's like, well, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
But you said the answer is no. And for some reason, since you hadn't mentioned, working with other artists, and so far I kind of figured the answer to that was no, but I had to ask, So, so what are you working on now? I mean, I know you have a studio, and the work that you're working on probably isn't here, but can you just give a description on it?
Well, I actually have a couple of the big pieces. They're not the 6x5 feet, but they're 4x4 wrapped up in plastic. I could take them out.
So this is what you're working on now.
This is more close to what I'm doing in the studio because I'm working really big.
Right.
And this piece is 48 by 48 inches. And it's called Stretch. And can you see the stretchiness of that shape in the
Definitely.
middle? It looks like it's reaching out. So, I do want to have people smile when they look at the work. And I think, a lot of people tell me that they do, that does make them feel happy and kind of buoyant. And I think there is a sense of humor in it. So if you are smiling and you're looking at this, then that's good. So the initial spill, the paint spill, of course, it wasn't just one color. You see a couple of different things, and it was very brave of me, I think, to go spill this, paint onto the white canvas and just kind of let it go. I do tilt the canvas here and there, and I do try to sometimes, move the spill along a little bit to make it be what I think might be more interesting. But generally, I just kind of let it happen. And then when it's dry, I same thing as the other pieces. I look at it and say, now where is this character? What's going on? What might be fun to see? What colors might be interesting as in combination here? What is going to draw the eye around the canvas? So
I see. Cool. And so how long did it take you to do this piece?
Oh, it's not like you work all day long necessarily on one piece until it's done. I mean, I usually do 2 or 3 pieces at the same time. It just helps me not get too precious about any one piece. But I think I thought this was finished in about 2 or 3 weeks, and then I think I went back and worked on it some more after that, maybe 2 or 3 days after that. So it's hard to say exactly.
Okay, so
But-
that answered the question that
Yeah.
I was thinking about asking. That is, do you ever go back to a piece after you've declared it
absolutely.
finished?
And
Interesting.
sometimes I think a piece is finished, and then I decide, a couple of weeks later or months later that I hate it, that it just doesn't do what I was hoping it to do, and I just paint it over and start all over again.
How many times have you done that?
Uh,
Or maybe let me ask you a different way. Like, about what percentage of times? Have you
It's
done
hard
that?
to say. But to get a piece that you feel really satisfied with, it takes a while. Sometimes you have to, I like to say that you have to let it simmer and cook for a little while and then go back to it. Like, put it away. When you think it's done, put it away. Don't look at it for 3 or 4 weeks or maybe a couple months, and then take it out again and then see what you think. Because sometimes, your eye gets tired and you
Right.
don't really you don't see the work.
Right.
You're not really looking anymore. So.
I got you. I've come to learn that you are playing an important role in the Arlington community with respect to art. Can you tell me more about that?
Yes, sure. So I have been chair of Arlington Public Art, and now I'm co-chair with Jill Monka for the last couple of years. Since it started in 2010, and it was actually a town initiative. One of the part-time town planners came to a group of people and said, we'd like to have a public art initiative in Arlington. And I just was so excited. I said, well, if that's going to happen, I'm totally there. I would love to be part of it. I'd love to be working with it. So that's how it started. And Arlington Public Art, or APA, is part of Vision 2020, which has really been an important volunteer organization in town. And So we have worked simply, only the budget we've had has been either some grants from the Arlington Cultural Council and donations that we get largely from our annual fundraiser called Cheerful Where You Sit.
Oh, okay.
And Cheerful Where You Sit I like to take the credit for that idea. We really needed some money to get our first project up and running. And
Right.
That was the boys and we call it the Spy Pond mural. It's actually a mural on the side of the Boys and Girls Club that overlooks Spy Pond.
Right.
And that was our very first project. We engaged Arlington High School students to participate in a competition, and 4 images were chosen. And those images were blown up really large on vinyl mesh, and they were hung on the side of the Boys and Girls Club. But that cost $8,000.
Right.
So we had no money, and we had, really kind of run aground with fundraising. And so I was walking my dog on the bike path, and I thought, got to raise the rest of this money. If we don't do it soon, people are going to forget about this idea. All the people that have already given us money, their project won't, come to fruition. We've got to do it. What can we do? So I thought, I wonder if I could get some other artists to help me. We could take old chairs and reinvent them with paint, and they could be donated by the artist, and people could buy them for $100. And it could be an art installation as well as a fundraiser. And I just was like, oh my God. And we'll call it Cheerful Where You Sit. And the whole thing came to me in a brainstorm.
That's very cool.
It really did. It just happened really quickly. And when I got home from the walk with my dog, I called some of the people in the group and I said, I have this crazy idea. What do you think? Do you think it's going to work? And so people were like, yeah, that's awesome. Let's do it. So I immediately started writing emails to some of the artists that I knew, and they knew people who might interested in doing it. And all of a sudden, we had like 30 people who were like, yeah, we'll take an orphan chair. You see chairs all the time,
Right.
at least in Arlington. I mean, I do. That are being set out for the trash, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just probably the people got a new dining room
Right.
set, or they were tired, or the chair has something a little bit wrong with it, but it's easy reparable. So it's like, find an orphan chair, take it home, clean it up a little bit, and then paint it crazy and just make it fun and whimsical. And then all the chairs are put out in front of Whittemore Robbins' house, or the Whittemore Park.
Right.
And that's in front of the Jefferson Cutter House, also known as the Cyrus Dallin Art Museum.
Right.
And this year it is July 22nd to the 24th. And I actually have found 5 volunteers to take over my running it, because I've just kind of burnt out on running it, but it
Right.
was my idea.
Right.
And so hopefully we'll keep raising money, and every year we've made more and more money. So that
Excellent.
first year we made $3,000, the second year we made $6,000, the third year we made $9,000. So this is all from chairs, people finding chairs and reinventing them with paint. So we've from that money, we've done a lot of things. We started the Transformer Box Mural Project, and so the switch boxes or transformer boxes, electrical boxes, you see them on every street corner. They're usually pretty ugly.
Right.
Some of them are in real bad repair. So artists are paid a stipend to make them more beautiful. And so we've got, I think, about 12 or 15 already done, and we have another 3 that are going to be done this summer. So yeah, long story to tell you that that's what we've been doing with Arlington Public Art.
Well, great. No, it's good to meet the person who's behind the Cheerful, and who's also helping fund the Transformer Box, because I've certainly seen them as I walk around, and I've wondered who has done them, and so I'm hoping that I'll get to maybe even meet some of those artists and talk to them about the inspiration behind their designs, or for the boxes that they've done, and other art that they've done. So thank you very, very much. This has been great. I'm enjoying this series even more than I thought I would, and it's thanks to talking with people like you. So once again, thanks for spending time with me.
You're welcome. Thank you, Len.